This is the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast with your host, Greg Jameson. Influencer marketing is the process of identifying, researching, engaging, and supporting the people who create high-impact conversations with your customers. On each episode, I talk with industry leaders, business rock stars, and internet celebrities who contribute their knowledge about influencing others and growing your influence. Welcome to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. I'm your host, Greg Jameson, and today is going to be a really fun episode. I have a guest with me. Her name is Helene Cahen, and Ellen is an innovation consultant. Everybody always wants to be innovating in their companies, I think, because that's what makes your company stand out. And we're going to talk today about how you can be more innovative, be more creative, and actually have that make a difference in your business. So I'm super excited for today's episode. Welcome, Ellen, and please tell our listeners more about yourself.
Good morning, Greg. I'm really excited to be here today. And I think this is a perfect time to have this discussion. So my background is I have a business background, and then 12 years ago I went back to school and got an MS in creativity and change leadership. And so my focus is really helping organizations with change. And I work from small business to large 500 companies as well as nonprofits. And what I love to do is really help with creating innovation, creating new ideas, and supporting teams to do that. And this is a perfect time because unfortunately we all are in the midst of big change, and business as usual is not really possible. And all of us has been deeply affected. And so this is a great time to try to think about your business and think about how you need to change and adapt and innovate so you can continue to thrive in this new, difficult and chaotic environment.
Awesome. So I agree. This is a great time for us to be innovating and to kind of be pivoting our businesses in general because of the changes that have happened in the world. But it seems like for many people, that's a great idea to talk about. You know, I know I need to do this, but innovation is hard. How do I actually get started thinking up new ideas?
Yeah, and it's change is hard, and one of the first the trait of creative people is to be comfortable with ambiguity, and we are in the midst of ambiguity because we don't know what's going to happen, and we have to start being more comfortable with it. And what I work with companies, what I really try to make people understand that there is a process. We are all creative, and if you understand the basic process of creativity, that makes it feel less overwhelming, and it feels like, yes, I can do something. And so at the most basic, simple level, there is 3 steps in a creative process. And I'm talking to creativity in business here. The first part is really understanding the challenge. So in this world, what are the new challenge? If I used to be selling mostly retail and I need to move my business online, what is the core challenge for me? Then the second steps is really to come up with a lot of ideas. So let's not start with, oh, I have this idea, let's just run for it, but let's come up with 10, 100 ideas and then narrow them down and figure out which one might be useful for my business. And then the third step is developing and implementing those ideas. And when we do that, it's also important to realize that some idea will fail. And so the best thing to do is what is called in design thinking prototyping. So try to small things and see what stick, what doesn't stick, and why before you start doing a huge new program. And that's part of experimenting, and then you can really implement. So 3 major steps: understanding the challenge and be sure you work on the right one. Einstein supposedly said that if I have an hour to save the world, it will spend 55 minutes really to understanding the problem. So the second part is come up with a lot of ideas, narrow them down. And the third step is try new things, test them, and implement them.
Okay, so you mentioned this term design thinking. Can you expand on that a little bit more and tell us exactly what you mean by that?
Yes. So big picture is the word has been really used is by IDEO a lot, which is a firm that helps with innovation. And basically, the core of design thinking, as I understand it, is the first thing is to be user-centered. So if you want to create something new, it only works if it meets the needs of you consumers, of your users, of your clients. So really understand those clients and have them part of the innovation process all along. The second part is it is not a linear process because sometimes new idea works and sometimes they don't work. So acknowledging the nature of it's an iterative process. You try something, it may work, it may not work, and you try again. And the important part is to do it fast and cheap. So that's why you don't want to go, takes 2 years to get the perfect program and then realize it doesn't work. And then the third part is the prototyping part of it, which is let's try things, let's test them, evaluate them, talk to people about those ideas before we implement things. So it's not about perfection, it's about the reality of a changing world and not knowing. And so that's for me, the 3 principles of design thinking that at the core of it. And there's a lot of tool and we can add to this, but this is the idea. User-centered, iterative, and prototype driven.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like the way that we think in terms of marketing, where you really have to know your customer well. And then once you know your customer well, then you can determine what it is that that they want, and therefore what kinds of things you should be marketing and obviously creating during this innovative process here.
Exactly. I think being always in touch and understanding deeply our customers is critical to any success in a business.
Yeah. Now, in some ways, that almost sounds counter to. I was actually I don't know if you are familiar with Guy Kawasaki, but he was the original evangelist for Apple for the Macintosh computer, and so he
Yes.
worked very closely with Steve Jobs. And what he was saying the other day was that if you were to ask a customer what they wanted, prior to the invention of the automobile, and people were in horse-drawn buggies, what the customer would have told you is they wanted a faster horse. They wouldn't have thought at all about, a horseless carriage, obviously an automobile. And the same thing was true with a lot of the innovations that happened at Apple, is that if you had asked people what they wanted, prior to the iPhone, for example, or even the iPod originally with the 1,000 songs in your pocket type thing, people wouldn't have been able to comprehend that at all in terms of what it is that they really wanted. So when you're sitting there just asking your customers what they want, they may not know what they really want.
Exactly. And the trick is not asking what they want, but understanding their problem. And in my work, we use a lot of ethnographic research when we can go to people's home or place of interaction. It can be a store, it can be an office, and watch them and understanding where they're paying the thing that are not working for them. So in the case of the Walkman or whatever, you could see if you would go to people's home and you see they have so many records, and every time they want to change a record, it was really annoying to take it off physically, move it up, put it at the right place, and all of that. Then you would acknowledge that there is some pain there. If it's really innovative, the users is not likely to be able to come up with the idea. but they can see and they can even articulate that, or they may not even realize because they've been changing record forever and they don't even think about it. But if you watch really carefully and then you can notice that there is something that is not smooth, or there's something that is, when people start to doing 4-step things, and it's like, why is this so complicated to go from A to Z? And then you realize, oh, there might be a better way to do it. So you might, don't ask the people for necessarily a product idea or what the solution is, but really try to understand their challenge, their problem, walk in their shoes, understand their lives, and how you can make it better for them.
I think that's great advice. There was a book that I read years ago. You're probably familiar with it. It's called Lateral Thinking by Edward
Yes.
DeBono,
Yeah.
that really talked about a lot of the things that you've talked about here, about having, lots and lots of ideas and kind of putting them out there to see what's working or not. But it seems like it's really difficult for many people, especially probably business owners, to truly be innovative. Is there any specific things that can kind of get people to start thinking about these different processes, or like you said, putting themselves in the customer's shoes to figure out what the pain points are?
And I really believe that ethnography is a big word. And, it used to be like there's the trained ethnograph that goes and study population and understanding where they come from. But in the design thinking approach, you can make it smaller. And I encourage my clients to say, you know what, if you and your team do 5 interviews, observation, and really spend maybe an hour with a customer and ask open-ended question. It could be, can you describe your day? Or can you describe what happened when you need to buy a gift for a friend? And just listen to that. And if your business is about selling gifts, then you might learn a lot about the challenge of finding the right gift, being sure the person will like it, being stressed that they will look cheap because that gift doesn't look so good, or they might not like it, and then or things like that. So you can learn a lot by asking open-ended question, listen. I would say if you speak more than 10% of the time, that's when you're speaking too much, and really learn about people's life and where things works and things are frustrating. And if you can observe them, particularly like if you have an online business and you can observe people actually shopping in your store, shopping in another store, virtual store, and see what they do and how they may compare between different sites, or how they put the stuff in the cart and then they wait 3 days because they need to ask with their partners whether it's the right thing or something like that. You might learn a lot. So if you have a chance to observe, in addition to interviewing, you can, with just a few interviews, it doesn't have to be hundreds of interviews. I'm talking 5, I'm talking 10. And that is really a great investment. And you don't have to be have years of research background to do that. The key is don't ask yes and no question, but ask open-ended question. Ask people to describe their experience. Ask people to describe what step do they need to use, and even better, show you, because sometimes people don't realize they're doing 10 things and they only say, well, I just click on the button and order. And that's not the reality. They click on the button and they compare to another site and they check the price on Amazon and they read the rating and they do 7 things. So if you could learn from that, then you can really understand their challenge. And once you understand the challenge, the rest is not that hard. Then you can find a better way to solve it, a unique way to solve it that, from your business perspective, this is a way that you can propose something that is maybe really unique to you, to your users.
Yeah, there's a couple things that you said there that stimulated several thoughts for me. One is what you were just talking about there, about customers may not even know exactly what it is that they're doing. Say that as you're going through an online store or doing something, I have these kind of issues with tech support all the time. All I did was just click this one button, and then it's like we get on a Zoom call and say, show me what you did. And they're like, they show you what they did. And it's like, okay, but before you clicked on that button, you did this.
Exactly.
And that's what caused the thing to behave differently than what you were expecting. The other thing is that you don't always have to have something be huge, it seems like, in order for it to be innovative. You know, we don't all have to come up with the next iPhone in order to make a positive difference in our customers' lives. It might be one very simple thing. And as an example, I know that in the early days, one of the things that Amazon did with their shopping cart is that people would put things in their shopping cart, and if they had not checked out, then a week later they would clear out the shopping cart for customers, so that, you know, they just thought, oh, this is a good idea, we'll just clear out the shopping cart so the next time they can come in here and uh, start their shopping experience again. And customers were like, what happened to the stuff that I put in my shopping cart? So now, as a result of that, Amazon will leave stuff in your shopping cart forever until you check out or you remove it yourself. And it seems like that may not seem like as big of an innovation as, like I said, the iPhone, but that can be a very innovative and creative way for you to garner more business and more trust with your customers.
Yeah, Greg, you bring a really good point, because often when we think innovation, people think it has to be a new product or a new service. But actually, there's a lot of places like process innovation, which you're describing, that can be as important, if not more important. So innovation can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be, the product can be the same, but you can do it in a different way, or have a different process, or have different partners. So you know, you partner with another company and it can be the same product, but it's going to be different. Or you can have a different marketing plan to communicate about it. The product is the same, but you be innovating in your marketing plan or in the way you sell or things like that. So innovation, it's not necessarily product or services. It can be anywhere. If you think about a business model canvas, any elements of a canvas can introduce innovation there.
Yeah, so that actually makes me think of a question here, and that is creativity and innovation always a good thing?
There's no moral values to it. So you can create evil products that destroy the world as well. So that's really, when you innovate, it's important to innovate within the framework of your organization, with the value of your organization. And so, yeah, innovation is not good or bad in itself. Innovation is change, and you have to decide if it's good for you, if it's good for your customer, if it's good for the world. And sometimes there's, you know, it can be a great product, but it might really be not good from an environmental perspective. And you have to decide, is that a way I want to go or not, based on the value of my organization, what I'm communicating, what is important to me. So
Right.
it still has to be evaluated.
And the other thing that I think that happens is that, and I see this with software all the time, and I'm sure it happens in all aspects of business, but people change things just to change things, and they think it's better, but it's like, you know, yeah, I get that you changed the location of, you know, for example, the save as feature, but that didn't really improve the functionality of this. All it did was make it so I have to relearn your software. And that is just a frustration for the user, not necessarily anything that's really improving their lives.
Yeah, there's always a tension between the engineers that like the innovation for the innovation, because this is cool and this would be better if we add more things, and the users that often doesn't want more things. You want the easier experience. They want the things to be invisible, and if you add 10 more features, I'm lost. So it's really that tension, and that's when at the end of the day, I really believe that the user should be the one driving it, because they are the one that have to actually use your product or services and in a way that is best for them.
Yeah, I was being an advocate here for Apple being innovative, but sometimes they would do the same types of things, like in their iPhone, they would take out the headphone jack, and because they were like, everybody's should be using Bluetooth. Well, some people don't want to use Bluetooth. The headphone jack is actually kind of nice to have. And so just taking it out and having innovation for innovation's sake is not always in the best interest of the customer.
Yes, and I think one of the challenges, especially in technologies, a lot of the technology is done by younger and mostly men engineers. I'm a nonprofit of a company supporting women engineers, and I know it's a struggle for them. And so sometimes they just build the best product for people like them, and not for people like all of us. And I think that's really a challenge.
Yeah. So this has been great. We need to take a quick break, but on the other side of the break, what I'd like to do is actually talk about some very specific examples, maybe of how different businesses can be innovative, and maybe what are some of the things that they might do. Let's think in terms here of people that are selling online, perhaps, and we'll come up with some ideas here, whether it be a jewelry store or somebody selling popcorn online, doesn't really matter. But let's think of some specific things that maybe we can start to drive people towards thinking differently. And we'll do that right on the other side of the break.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Greg Jameson, the host of the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. Every week, I not only have the opportunity, but the real privilege of interviewing experts in their field, true thought leaders, and I get to share this information with you. The purpose of this is really to help you sell more of your products and services online, which is the core premise of my primary business, Web Stores Limited. At Web Stores, we go out and we create e-commerce websites for small businesses. Plus, we do internet marketing and digital advertising for those businesses to really help them sell more online. We have a whole number of resources and tools designed to help make this process easier for businesses, probably much like yours. I've been the author of several #1 best-selling books, including Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets and The Influencer Effect, plus a whole series of online courses if you want to learn how to do this stuff yourself. The best way to remain in contact with me, besides subscribing to this podcast, of course, is to simply go to gregjameson.com/free gift, where I have a special offer for you simply because you are a valued listener to this podcast. Thanks again, and now let's get back to today's episode. Welcome back to the 20 Minutes of Influence podcast. My guest today is Helene Cahen, and right before the break, we were talking about all this kind of conceptual stuff here about innovating and being more creative in your business. And I kind of posed this challenge here to Helene about let's come up with some specific examples of how you can actually be more creative and innovative in your business. So let's just start out, and I don't really care what example we use here, Helene, but maybe let's pick one of the things that I had said was somebody selling popcorn. If I'm selling popcorn, how can I really be more innovative and have that make a difference in the lives of my customers?
Perfect. So the first thing you would do is try to maybe watch people, ask people to just keep a little diary maybe of when they eat popcorn, and describe the time they eat popcorn, what kind of popcorn, when they don't have popcorn, what other snacks would they use, kind of really understand where popcorn fit in their universe. And you might learn that, oh, they do popcorn when they watch a movie on TV, but not when they watch a series. I don't know, could be interesting. Or, they always put salt in it, but they would like to be sweet, but caramel corn is too much work. or they like popcorn because of the healthy aspect of it, and they eat it all day in the office. So you will really understand the popcorn, but you also understand popcorn in the big universe of snacking and kind of occasions. And then you can start thinking about, okay, so if I have a popcorn line and I have the basic and maybe the caramel and the truffle oil, so I have 3 popcorn right now, what else do I want to do? And what's the challenge here? So is your challenge is, I realize that, and I'm making it up here because I haven't done study popcorn, but people won't eat it at night. I'm like, okay, I have a challenge because the rest of the day people are not eating it, they're eating other snacks. So my challenge that I identified through that research is, how do we have people eating popcorn all day long? And so once you have that challenge, it's very specific now. It's like, okay, so we need to think about the different occasion and what are all the popcorn ideas. And this is a constraint that we say we want to come up with popcorn. We're not going to make any other snacks. The only thing we want to make is popcorn. And that's important that we have constraints when we design. So backing up a little bit, clear constraints and clear criteria. So my criteria here for this new product, it has to be a popcorn. Different popcorn, but it has to be a popcorn. That's a constraint. So I'm thinking, okay, what do I do for breakfast? People like cereal for breakfast. So can I make popcorn become a part of a breakfast cereal? Or can I have a coffee tasting popcorn? Or can I have something that would be fun if you put it in your coffee and suddenly explode or something? So not suddenly there is a lot of ideas around popcorn for breakfast. And then people snack during the day and they eat other things. Popcorn is only at night. So now I have the popcorn for the 10 o'clock snack or for a healthy business meeting or something like that. So suddenly I would have a bunch of new ideas for popcorn, and it will all come from understanding my users here and realizing that I have this really interesting insight that people only eat popcorn at night. And
Yeah.
from all those ideas, so I can come up with 100 ideas on popcorn. That would be really easy. If you have a team of 5 people, I can take it through a few exercises and they'll get 100 ideas in 15 minutes. I guarantee you that. So you have those 100 ideas. What do you do next is a big challenge. And my experience is where brainstorming failed, because people say, I've done a brainstorming, we have 100 ideas, we don't know what to do. And then we do nothing. So the big thing here is, there's this tool that is simple, it's called clustering. So you would take all your ideas, I usually do Post-its, and you can do virtual Post-its these days as well. And you would group them. And you see there is a whole set of ideas on healthy popcorn. And there's a whole set of ideas about savory popcorn. And there is another set of ideas about popcorn makers that maybe I can't do it, but if I have easier way for people to make popcorn, maybe they eat it all day long. So maybe there's a whole idea of partnership with other company that can help make popcorn and every day, or associated with Starbucks coffee or something like that. So now I have all those 100 ideas, but really I have 3 clusters. And then I would take them and then say, can I develop this idea a little bit and test them? So if I have an idea of partnership, maybe I can approach a couple of companies and see, can I partner with the popcorn machine maker or with Starbucks, with the local coffee shop or something, and do something around popcorn? Or if I have different flavors, maybe I put on my website that I do a survey and say I have 20 new flavors, which one would you buy? I'll send it for free. And this technique is called the click to nowhere. It's actually a really good way to test. So you put something on the website like you have the offer and see where people click. And then the product might not be available, but you would know where people are actually really interested, rather than in theory, and see what happens. So you can learn that, from you 20 ideas of savory popcorn, there is one that's really people would love with, jalapeno salt. And now you can narrow it down. And then maybe you do a small batch of those popcorn and send it to 40 of your best customers and see if they like it and what they think about it and would they buy it. And then once you have that information, then you're like, this is a winner, then I can put it on my website. I can get it produced in big quantity and things like that. But in the meantime, I haven't invested either a lot of time or a lot of money to make that popcorn because I wouldn't know. So that's how I would work on this challenge, for
Okay,
example.
yeah, you came up with a whole ton of ideas there real quickly, which was great. And it actually stimulated some thoughts for me as well, one of which is uh, the people that I know in general that make popcorn, they make it as a treat, as a sweet thing, like you said, caramel corn or candied popcorn or whatever. And one of the things you said was the healthy aspects of popcorn. Uh, that seems like something that people could really capitalize on, as saying, popcorn by itself, before we put all this flavoring on it, is really pretty healthy, especially if you make it, say, with coconut oil or whatever, instead of sticking it in the microwave or whatever. So we've got this snack that is actually very healthy. And what can we do to create an easy way to consume this? And maybe we come up with a little thing much like the protein bars that you buy in the grocery stores, that is maybe more like a Rice Krispie treat type thing, except it's made out of popcorn and it's not just sweet. We're not gooing it up with a bunch of marshmallows. We're putting in healthy ingredients, and now we've got this health bar that's made out of popcorn. So yeah, you were stimulating a whole bunch of thoughts for me as well, which I think is important in the creative process. And that is something that actually a lot of people don't realize is most creative people, I think, they don't necessarily come up with ideas on their own. They look at an idea over here and another one over there and one over here, and they are able to put those different thoughts together to come up with something that's new and innovative, because they're drawing on multiple resources. So before we get into that discussion, which I think is really part of kind of the brainstorming process, let's throw out one other example. The other one that I had mentioned here earlier was somebody selling jewelry. I'm just selling jewelry. How can I possibly be more creative and innovative with that?
So I would do the same thing. I would, maybe if I would ask like 10 customers and say, hey, can you take a picture of your jewelry box? And can you take a picture of yourself wearing jewelry in different circumstances? And I would start looking at what they're wearing and what they're not wearing and when, and then realize, people wear earrings. I'm totally making it up here, obviously. People wear earrings every day, and they wear their rings, but bracelet, it looks like they only wear it when they have a fancy meeting. Oh, this is interesting. And once again, I'm making it up. Or, they don't have ankle bracelet. Most people don't wear ankle bracelet. Or, so there might be areas, and then I will, hey, why do you not wear ankle bracelet? Well, I don't like the association with, or, I had them and I keep losing them because they break on my foot or something. And then suddenly I can identify a couple of places. It's like, how do we have people wear more pieces of jewelry every day would be one challenge. Or how do you get people to buy type of jewelry they don't have? That would be another challenge. And so you would say, okay, which seems more important to us? Well, we're really interested in the jewelry part that they don't wear, so let's do the same thing. No, we're trying to get people to buy jewelry pieces that they don't place in their body, that they don't wear any jewelry right now. Then you can come up with a lot of ideas, ankle bracelet, touring, jewelry at your waist, I don't know what else. So you would come with a lot of new ideas for jewelries, and you would maybe have 50 or 100, and then you can draw some, for example, and then you can do a test with you users and say, hey, we have those pieces of jewelry. Would you be interested in buying them? Why not? Maybe you can make a small batch of them and give them to the people for free, and then ask them to wear it as they see fit for a month and see. And then you realize, the touring, people wear it once and then never wear it again. But that ankle bracelet, people put it in and they have it for whole months and they got a love compliment, and maybe we should really have a line of ankle bracelet. And then, and then you would then put it on your website, maybe have a small batch the first time, not to take a big financial risk. And if it gets sold out in a week, then you know you want a big thing, and then you start making a bigger batch or more options or something like that.
Perfect. So what that illustrates to me is that, again, you came up with a bunch of different ideas here, and we could go on forever because that stimulates more thoughts in my mind. And I think that that is actually really important. So let's just touch base here real quickly on kind of that process that you and I just went through here with those examples, which I think is part of brainstorming. And tell me what your thoughts on brainstorming are.
So, okay, I feel really strongly about this. So I'll say that brainstorming for me is one tool in the ideation phase of the whole process I described before. So brainstorming is just a small piece. What is more important is where I started to before is what is the problem? So with the popcorn challenge, what was the problem is that people eat popcorn only at night. And we wanted to create more occasions. In the jewelry example, the challenge was people only wear, there's places in their body that they don't wear jewelry. And so that's an opportunity to create that. So that was the most important part of this whole work, because once you do that, as demonstrated, it's easy to come up with a lot of ideas. So let's be sure we understand the right problem, because there's a lot of different problems we work on. And often, and it happened in a small company, it happened in a big company, people spend 2 years working on this big project on this problem, and then they realize that's not really the right problem, or we're missing a big element of this problem that we should have known up front. So once you have that problem, then you get to the ideation, and that's where you do brainstorming being one tool. There is other techniques you can use, but basically you try to generate a lot of ideas, and also to narrow them down. And that's also where often people don't know how to do that. So in my world, it's called the dynamic balance of creativity. And there's 2 elements in that. And it's true for every of those phases of the process. You have to diverge and look at a lot of options. So you look at a lot of possible problems, a lot of possible ideas, a lot of possible solutions, a lot of ways to implement something. And then there's a converge when you narrow things down and pick and select. So you might see 3 problems or 10 problems and pick one. You might have 100 ideas, but you narrow them down to 2 or 3 areas. You might have a lot of ways to develop those ideas, and you decide this is the way we want to go. You might have a lot of ways to test something, decide this is how we test it. So that converging, and that's really important, because otherwise people are left with, this is overwhelming. I did my brainstorming, I have 150 ideas, I don't know what to do with them. I put them in a file and do nothing. And I've seen that so many times with small and big organizations. So finding those tools and techniques to narrow things down, to pick and select, that's the only time in the creative process that you need to have a discussion at some point, is which one do you want to pick and why, and be very clear about your criteria for those decisions. So on the problem, we want a problem that is relevant to our organization. In the ideas, we want ideas that also maybe have a values, like we talked a little earlier. So we have a lot of ideas, but we want them that are healthy, or we want something that we can make with a production system, current production system. We don't want to change the system. Or we want to make something that is going to make money within 6 months, whatever that is. So those are very important element to think about when you do this process. So brainstorming, small piece of it, but really understanding the problem, come up with a lot of ideas, develop those ideas, test them, see the value, and then obviously implement them.
Yeah, what you said about understanding the problem, that seems to be so important. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this. You know, the problem is not that you need a faster horse or whatever it is, but you need, a way of getting from point A to point B faster.
Exactly.
So yeah, really understanding the problem that the customer is having seems so important. This has been fascinating for me. I think that there's a lot of things that so many business owners can really think about here, and it sounds like they need to connect with you in whatever ways they can here. But before we wrap up, is there any kind of final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
That make it simple. Like, it can feel overwhelming, but I would say, talk to your users, come up with a bunch of ideas, narrow them down, and test them. And just that simple thing. And use a lot of Post-its if you can. I love Post-its. It's really helpful to, it can be very complicated, but it can also be easy. And I'd just try it. Just have that mindset of, I'll try it, and it will get you some movement. And if you need help, obviously, please reach out. Okay.
And why don't you go ahead and give us the contact information here as to where they should reach out, and I'll make sure that we put some stuff here in the show notes as well.
Okay. So my website is strategicinsights.biz, and you can see it in the show notes. And for this audience, I have two offers. I have a one page of 9 questions that can kind of spark you thinking about innovation. Kind of a little checklist. Is like, oh, have we thought about this? Have we thought about the financial aspect of it? Have we thought about how we should think about a return on investment or things like that? And also, if you want to reach out, I'd be glad to have a 30 minutes free consultation to see how I might be of help to your business.
Awesome. Very generous. This has been great, Ellen, and really appreciate your time here today.
Greg, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of 20 Minutes of Influence. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you are interested in booking myself as a speaker at one of your events, or are interested in any of my coaching programs, please visit gregjameson.com.